The meeting room was cold and quiet. Council Representative Zixthara looked at the holographic display showing planet Kepler 442c. The world spun slowly in the blue light, its surface covered in dark storms and strange colors. This planet had killed everyone who tried to live there. "The humans will die like all the others," Zixthara said to the other council members. "Then we can finally stop their expansion across our galaxy." The aliens had tried everything to colonize this world. The Vrex sent their best soldiers, all dead within 3 days. The Cathani used their strongest biosuits. The planet's acid rain melted them. Even the Thulgust, who could survive in space without protection, ran away after losing half their army to the planet's monsters. Now it was the humans' turn. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the transport ship New Frontier. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. Behind him, 500 humans waited in the cargo bays. They had all volunteered for this mission, knowing they might never come home. "Sir, we're approaching the planet," said Lieutenant Commander Lisa Carter. She was younger than the captain, with short brown hair and a serious face. She had read every report about the failed missions. The numbers were not good. Jake nodded. "Open communication to all decks." The ship's speakers crackled to life. "This is Captain Morrison speaking. In 2 hours we will begin landing on Kepler 442c. I won't lie to you. This planet has killed everyone who tried to live there. The aliens think we're going to die too." He paused, looking out at the planet through the view screen. "But we're not like them. We're humans. We survived ice ages on Earth. We survived plagues that killed millions. We survived wars that lasted decades. We're still here because we don't give up." In the science lab, Dr. Kevin Hayes checked his equipment one more time. He was a thin man with thick glasses who loved solving puzzles. The planet below was the biggest puzzle he had ever seen. According to the alien reports, the air was poison. The rain was acid, and the ground moved like it was alive. "Sounds like home," he said to himself, remembering stories his grandfather told about working in the coal mines of Pennsylvania. The first dropship bay opened with a loud hiss. Sergeant Pete Collins looked at his team of 20 Marines. They were all young and strong, but Pete had seen combat before. He knew that strength alone wouldn't keep them alive down there. "Remember your training," he told them. "Stay together, watch each other's backs, and if something tries to eat you, make sure you're too tough to swallow." The Marines laughed, but their hands stayed close to their weapons. In the environmental lab, Dr. Amy Foster packed her collection tools. She was a marine biologist who had spent her career studying life in Earth's deepest oceans. If anything could survive on this planet, she wanted to understand it. "The aliens keep calling it a death world," she said to her assistant. "But death is just another kind of life? Something is living down there, or there wouldn't be anything to kill the visitors." The dropships were small and cramped. Each one carried 25 people and enough supplies for 1 week. That was optimistic. Most alien expeditions didn't last 3 days. Roy Martinez, the environmental engineer, sat next to Nancy Bell, the communications specialist. Roy was a big man from Texas who had spent years cleaning up polluted rivers. Nancy was small and quiet, but she could make any machine talk. "What do you think we'll find down there?" Nancy asked. Roy shrugged. "Trouble, probably. But I've seen plenty of trouble before. The trick is to make friends with it." The planet filled the view screen now. Jake could see the massive storms that covered most of the surface. Lightning flashed constantly in the thick atmosphere. The land masses were dark and seemed to shift as he watched. "Sir," Lisa said, "we're getting some strange readings from the planet's surface. The electromagnetic patterns don't match any known geological activity." "What do you think it is?" "I don't know. But it's like the planet is ... thinking." The first wave of dropships launched at dawn, planet time. Jake watched them disappear into the stormy atmosphere. Each ship carried a piece of humanity's future. Either they would succeed where all others had failed, or they would become another footnote in the galaxy's history books. The alien observers watched from their safe distance. They had recording equipment ready to document humanity's destruction. Some had even placed bets on how long the humans would survive. 3 days, said one alien captain, just like the Vrex. I think less, said another. Humans are softer than Vrex. But they were wrong about humans being soft. As the dropships descended through the acid clouds, the pilots fought to keep their ships steady. The storm winds were stronger than anything they had trained for. Lightning struck the ships repeatedly, but the hulls held. This is Dropship 1, Pete Collins reported over the radio. We're through the worst of it. I can see the landing zone. The surface of the planet was unlike anything they had seen before. The ground was covered in a thick, dark substance that moved like liquid but held their weight. Strange trees grew in twisted patterns, their branches glowing with soft blue light. In the distance, mountains of crystal rose into the cloudy sky. Dropship 1, you are clear to land, Lisa's voice crackled through the static. The ship touched down with a soft thud. Pete checked his breathing mask and weapons one more time. The air outside was thick with chemicals that would kill most species in minutes. Remember, he told his team, we're not trying to conquer this place. We're trying to survive it. The door opened and the first human stepped onto the surface of Kepler 442c. The planet's gravity was slightly heavier than Earth's, and the air tasted of metal and lightning. But Pete Collins was still alive, and that was more than any alien had managed. Within an hour, all 10 dropships had landed successfully. The humans quickly began setting up their base camp in a clearing between the glowing trees. The alien observers watched in growing confusion as the humans not only survived their first hour on the planet, but seemed to be thriving. They should be dead by now, one alien muttered. Maybe they will be soon, another replied, but he didn't sound convinced. Dr. Foster was already collecting samples of the moving ground. Dr. Hayes was measuring the electromagnetic readings from the crystal mountains. Roy Martinez was testing the chemical composition of the air and finding ways to filter it. As the sun set on their first day, the humans had accomplished something no other species had managed. They had spent 6 hours on the planet's surface, and were still alive. More than that, they were curious about what tomorrow would bring. Jake Morrison stood at the edge of the camp, looking out at the alien landscape. The glowing trees pulsed gently in the darkness, and he could hear strange sounds in the distance. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Sir, Lisa said, joining him, we're receiving some interesting signals from the planet. It's almost like it's trying to communicate. Jake smiled. Then maybe we should try to talk back. In orbit above, the alien observers prepared their reports. They had expected to document humanity's swift destruction. Instead, they were witnessing something unprecedented, a species that looked at a Deathworld and saw potential. The real test would come tomorrow, when the planet's true guardians emerged from their hiding places. The first morning on Kepler 442c started with screaming. Pete Collins woke up to the sound of his motion sensors going crazy. Something big was moving around their camp. He grabbed his rifle and stepped outside his tent. The sun was just rising, casting strange shadows through the glowing trees. What do you see? Dr. Amy Foster asked, coming up behind him with her scanner. I don't know yet, Pete whispered. But it's big. The creature emerged from between the crystal formations like something from a nightmare. It stood 8 feet tall and looked like it was made of living rock. Sharp crystal spikes covered its body, and its eyes glowed red in the dim light. When it moved, the spikes made a sound like breaking glass. That's what killed the Thulgest, Amy said quietly. The reports called them crystal hunters. The creature stopped at the edge of their camp and tilted its head, studying them. Pete kept his rifle ready, but something about the creature's posture made him wait. It wasn't attacking. It was curious. Easy, big guy, Pete said softly. We're not here to hurt you. The creature made a low rumbling sound and took a step closer. More movement in the trees showed that it wasn't alone. At least 6 more crystal hunters surrounded their camp. Should we run? Amy asked. Where would we go? Pete replied. Besides, look at how it's moving. It's not hunting. It's investigating. Amy looked at her scanner. You're right. Its body temperature is stable, and its movements are deliberate, not aggressive. It's trying to understand what we are. The lead Crystal Hunter came closer, moving slowly. When it was 10 feet away, it stopped and made a series of clicking sounds. The other creatures responded with their own clicks. "They're talking," Amy said with excitement. "They have a language." Pete slowly lowered his rifle. "Then let's try to talk back." He made a soft clicking sound with his tongue. The creature's head snapped toward him and its eyes brightened. It clicked back, a different pattern this time. "I think you just said hello," Amy laughed. Other humans began emerging from their tents. Roy Martinez came out carrying a bucket of water, and Nancy Bell had her communication equipment. Dr. Hayes appeared with his geological scanner, fascinated by the creature's crystal structure. "Don't make any sudden movements," Pete told everyone. "I think they're friendly, but let's not push our luck." The crystal hunters stayed for 2 hours, watching the humans go about their morning routine. They seemed particularly interested in Roy's work with the water filtration system. When he demonstrated how it cleaned the planet's acidic water, the creatures made excited, clicking sounds. "I think they're impressed," Roy said. "Maybe they have trouble with the water, too." Nancy set up her equipment and began recording the creature's language patterns. The clicks and rumbles followed mathematical sequences that reminded her of binary code. "These aren't just random sounds," she told the others. "They're transmitting information." Complex information. As the day went on, more creatures appeared. The moving ground that had puzzled the humans turned out to be covered with small, worm-like beings that helped break down organic matter. The glowing trees were home to flying creatures that looked like jellyfish made of light. "This place isn't trying to kill us," Amy said as she watched a light jellyfish hover near her hand. "It's trying to understand us." Dr. Hayes made the first major discovery while analyzing the soil samples. "The acid rain isn't random," he announced. "It follows a pattern. The planet is cleaning itself." "What do you mean?" Pete asked. "Look at this," Hayes said, showing them his data. "The acid rain falls in specific areas at specific times. It's removing dead organic matter and preparing the soil for new growth. It's like the planet is taking a shower." Roy tested the theory by collecting rainwater in different areas. Hayes was right. The acid levels varied depending on what the planet was trying to clean. In some areas, the rain was barely acidic at all. "We can predict where the safe zones are," Roy said. "We just need to understand the planet's schedule." Nancy made an even bigger discovery when she analyzed the electromagnetic signals from the crystal mountains. "The entire planet is connected," she said. "These signals are like a nervous system. The mountains, the trees, the ground, even the storms, they're all part of one big organism." "You mean the planet is alive?" Amy asked. "Not just alive," Nancy said. "It's intelligent." That evening, the crystal hunters returned. This time they brought gifts. The lead creature placed a small crystal formation near Pete's tent and made a series of gentle clicks. The crystal glowed softly, providing light and warmth. "I think they're trying to help us," Pete said. Amy studied the crystal with her scanner. "It's not just a light source. It's generating a field that neutralizes the harmful chemicals in the air. They're giving us a way to breathe easier." The humans began to understand that what the aliens had called a Deathworld was actually a living planet that had been trying to communicate with its visitors. The previous expeditions had failed because they came as conquerors, not guests. The Vrex probably started shooting the moment they saw the crystal hunters, Pete said. The Cathemi likely tried to change the environment instead of adapting to it. And the Thulgust probably ignored all the communication attempts, Nancy added. They're not known for their diplomatic skills. Roy had been working with the local water sources and made his own discovery. "The acid isn't trying to dissolve our equipment," he said. "It's trying to clean it. If we work with it instead of against it, we can use it to maintain our tools." He demonstrated by placing a rusty metal tool in a controlled acid bath. Instead of dissolving, the rust disappeared, leaving the metal cleaner than before. "The planet wants to help," Amy said. "We just need to learn how to let it." The breakthrough came when Nancy successfully decoded part of the planetary communication system. The glowing trees pulsed in patterns that corresponded to the electromagnetic signals from the mountains. The planet was literally talking to itself, and now the humans could listen in. "It's beautiful," Nancy said, playing the translated signals through her speakers. The sounds were like music, complex harmonies that shifted and changed like a living symphony. The crystal hunters responded to the music by creating their own harmonies with their clicking sounds. Soon, the entire area around the human camp was filled with a strange and wonderful concert. "We're not just surviving," Pete said, looking around at the peaceful scene. "We're making friends." Dr. Hayes sent his daily report to the ship in orbit. Day 2 on Kepler 442c, all personnel alive and healthy. Have made contact with multiple intelligent species. Planet appears to be a single living organism attempting to communicate with visitors. Recommend reclassification from hostile to actively helpful. In orbit, the alien observers read the report with growing disbelief. The humans had spent 2 days on the planet and were not only alive, but claiming to have made friends with the creatures that had killed every previous expedition. "Impossible," Zixthara said. "They must be lying to make themselves look brave before they die." But the video evidence was clear. The humans were not just surviving. They were thriving. More importantly, they were learning to work with the planet instead of against it. Captain Jake Morrison smiled as he read Pete's report. "Looks like we're not the first ones to visit this world," he said to Lisa. "We're just the first ones to be polite about it." As night fell on the second day, the humans settled into their camp with a new understanding. They weren't fighting for survival on a hostile world. They were guests on a living planet that had been waiting for someone to finally say hello. The crystal hunters maintained a protective circle around the camp, their bodies glowing softly in the darkness. The light jellyfish danced overhead, and the musical conversation between the trees and mountains continued into the night. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new discoveries. But tonight, for the first time in galactic history, visitors to Kepler 442c went to sleep feeling safe and welcome. 3 months had passed since the humans first landed on Kepler 442c. What started as a small camp had grown into a real settlement. The humans had learned to work with the planet instead of fighting it, and the results were amazing. Tony Brooks wiped the sweat from his face as he looked at his garden. The plants were growing faster than anything he had ever seen on Earth. The tomatoes were twice their normal size, and the corn stalks reached higher than his head. The secret was in the soil. "The planet is helping us grow food," he told Dr. Hayes, who was taking measurements nearby. "It's like the ground knows exactly what the plants need." Hayes nodded, looking at his scanner. "The soil composition changes based on what you plant. The planet is literally feeding your crops." Tony had been a farmer in Kansas before joining the mission. He knew good soil when he saw it, but this was something beyond good. This was perfect. The planet was actively helping their food grow. "Look at this," he said, showing Hayes a potato he had just pulled from the ground. It was the size of a football and perfectly formed. "I planted normal Earth potatoes. The planet made them better." Not far away, Dr. Amy Foster was having her own amazing discovery. She had been tracking the crystal hunters for weeks, learning their habits and behavior. Today, she was about to meet their leader. The creature that emerged from the crystal caves was bigger than the others. It stood 10 feet tall, and its crystal spikes were arranged in complex patterns that caught the light like a prism. The other crystal hunters made respectful clicking sounds as it approached. "That's got to be their chief," Pete Collins said, keeping his rifle ready, but not aimed. "Look how the others are acting." Amy stepped forward slowly, her hands empty and visible. She had learned enough of their clicking language to communicate basic ideas. She clicked a greeting pattern that meant friend and peace. The giant crystal hunter tilted its massive head and responded with a complex series of clicks. Nancy Bell, who had been recording everything, quickly translated through her equipment. "It's saying something about big danger and skyfire," Nancy said. "I think it's trying to warn us about something." The creature pointed toward the mountains with one of its crystal arms. In the distance, they could see storm clouds gathering. But these weren't normal storms. Lightning was flashing inside the clouds in patterns that looked almost like writing. "The planet is trying to tell us something," Amy said. "And our new friend here is translating for us." The giant crystal hunter made more clicks, and this time Nancy understood better. "It's saying that something big is coming, something from space." Within hours, the humans learned what the crystal hunters had been warning them about. A massive asteroid was heading toward the planet. It would hit in less than 2 days, and it was big enough to destroy their entire settlement. Captain Jake? Morrison received the report from the ship's sensors. "The asteroid is 3 miles wide," he told the landing team over the radio. "We need to evacuate immediately." But the humans had nowhere to go. The transport ships couldn't take off in time. And even if they could, there wasn't enough room for everyone. "We're not leaving," Pete Collins said firmly. "This is our home now." "Then we need to find a way to stop that asteroid," Jake replied. The answer came from an unexpected source. The planet itself began to respond to the approaching threat. The storms grew stronger, and the electromagnetic signals from the crystal mountains increased dramatically. The entire world seemed to be preparing for something. Nancy monitored the planet's communication systems as the activity increased. "The planet knows about the asteroid," she reported. "It's mobilizing its defenses." "What defenses?" Hayes asked. They got their answer the next morning. The crystal hunters had gathered in the hundreds, all clicking in unison. The light jellyfish descended from the trees in glowing clouds. Even the small worm-like creatures in the soil were moving in organized patterns. "They're not running away," Amy observed. "They're getting ready to fight?" The asteroid appeared as a bright spot in the sky, growing larger by the hour. The humans watched nervously as it approached, but the planet's creatures seemed calm and determined. "Look at the mountains," Nancy said. Pointing to the crystal formations in the distance, the mountains were glowing brighter than they had ever seen before. Energy was building up inside the crystal structures, creating a light show that was visible even in daylight. "The planet is charging up," Hayes said in amazement. "It's using the crystal formations as some kind of weapon system." Roy Martinez had been working with the planet's electromagnetic systems for weeks. "I think I understand," he said. "The whole planet is like a giant machine. The crystals are the power sources, the trees are the control systems, and the storms are the delivery method." As the asteroid came closer, the planet's response became more dramatic. The storms merged into one massive weather system that covered half the continent. Lightning struck the crystal mountains repeatedly, but instead of causing damage, it seemed to be feeding them energy. "It's like the planet is eating the lightning," Tony said. Watching from his garden, the crystal hunters formed a huge circle around the human settlement. Their leader, the giant one that Amy had befriended, stood at the center and began a rhythmic, clicking pattern. The other creatures joined in, creating a sound like 1,000 drums beating in perfect time. "They're not just watching," Amy realized. "They're participating. They're part of the planet's defense system." The asteroid was now visible as a burning streak across the sky. It would hit the planet in less than 6 hours. The humans prepared for the worst, but the planet's creatures seemed confident. "Whatever happens," Pete told his people, "we stand with our friends." As the asteroid entered the planet's atmosphere, the crystal mountains released their stored energy. Beams of pure light shot into the sky, striking the space rock with incredible force. The asteroid began to break apart, its pieces scattering across the upper atmosphere, but the planet wasn't finished. The storm system that had been building all day unleashed its power. Winds strong enough to move mountains caught the asteroid fragments and pushed them away from the populated areas. Most of the pieces burned up in the atmosphere, and the few that reached the ground fell harmlessly into the ocean. The humans watched in amazement as their new home defended itself and them. The planet had treated them as part of its family. "Worth protecting? Did you see that?" Roy shouted over the radio to the ship in orbit. "The planet just shot down an asteroid." The crystal hunters clicked in celebration. their sounds mixing with the humans' cheers. The light jellyfish danced in spirals above the settlement, and even the trees seemed to pulse with joy. Tony looked at his garden, which had survived the entire event without a single damaged plant. "The planet protected us," he said quietly. "It really thinks of us as its children." Dr. Foster approached the giant crystal hunter, who was still standing guard over the settlement. She clicked a pattern that meant "thank you" and "family." The creature responded with a gentle rumble that somehow sounded like laughter. "We're not just living here anymore," she told the others. "We're part of this place. We're part of the planet." The alien observers in orbit watched everything with growing shock. Not only had the humans survived on the Deathworld, but the planet itself had actively protected them. This was beyond anything they had ever seen. "The planet chose them," one observer said quietly. "It accepted them as its own." "How is that possible?" another asked. "Maybe," the first observer replied, "the humans were never the ones being tested. Maybe the planet was testing us and we all failed until now." As night fell on Kepler 442c, the humans celebrated with their alien friends. The crisis had brought them closer together and proven that they truly belonged on this strange and wonderful world. The settlement was no longer just a human colony. It was a community of different species working together, protected by a living planet that had chosen them as its guardians. Captain Morrison sent his report to the Galactic Council that night. "Kepler 442c is not a death world," he wrote. "It's a living planet with its own intelligence and defense systems. The humans have been accepted as permanent residents. Recommend immediate reclassification and establishment of formal diplomatic relations." The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous places were actually the most protective, if you knew how to earn their trust. 2 months had passed since Captain Jake Morrison and his team first landed on the deadly planet. Admiral Vextar stood in the command center of the Coalition ship, staring at reports that made no sense. The humans were not just alive. They were doing something impossible. "Sir, the humans are asking for more people," said his assistant, a tall blue alien with 4 arms. "They want scientists, engineers, and farmers." Admiral Vextar's eyes grew wide. "Farmers? Why would they need farmers? On a death world?" The assistant looked just as confused. "They say they need them for their new colony." Morrison's voice came through the communication system, clear and strong. "Admiral, we have some good news to share. The planet is not what we thought it was. It's actually quite friendly once you know how to talk to it." The Admiral felt a headache coming on. "What do you mean, talk to it?" "Well, sir, Dr. Chang figured out that the whole planet is like one big living thing. The plants, the ground, even the air, they all work together. The previous teams failed because they tried to fight it. We decided to make friends with it instead." On the planet's surface, Dr. Lisa Chang was busy in what used to be a patch of poisonous plants. Now it looked more like a garden. She had spent weeks learning how the plants communicated with each other through chemical signals. It was like a language, but instead of words, they used smells and tastes. "The planet was trying to protect itself," Chang explained to Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, who was recording her report. "When the other teams came with their big machines and weapons, the planet thought they were invaders. So it fought back. But when we came with respect and curiosity, it realized we were not a threat." Rodriguez nodded as she filmed Chang working with the alien plants. Some of them had actually changed color from their original dark purple to a bright green, which Chang said meant they were happy and healthy. "The planet has been sick for a long time," Chang continued. "There are areas where the soil is poisoned, places where the animals are dying, and regions where nothing grows at all. The planet has been trying to fix these problems for thousands of years, but it could not do it alone. Sergeant Ben Harris was working with a group of the massive creatures that had killed the previous exploration teams. These beasts stood 10 feet tall and had claws like swords, but they were not attacking the humans. Instead, they were helping them move heavy rocks and dig channels for water. "They're actually quite intelligent," Harris explained to Corporal Danny West, who was still amazed by the sight. They were attacking the other teams because those teams were destroying their homes. We showed them that we wanted to help fix the damage, and now they work with us." West shook his head in wonder. "Back on Earth, we would have called them monsters. Here, they're like ... giant helpful dogs." The humans had learned to work with every part of the planet's ecosystem. The corrosive atmosphere that had melted the Coalition's equipment was being filtered through special plants that Chang had helped grow. These plants cleaned the air and produced oxygen that the humans could breathe. The shifting ground that had swallowed entire Coalition bases was now being used as a transportation system. West had figured out that the ground movements followed a pattern like a very slow conveyor belt. By timing their movements correctly, the humans could travel across the continent in a fraction of the time it would take to walk. "It's like riding a subway train," West told Morrison during one of their daily briefings. "A very slow, very alive subway train." The communication network Chang had discovered was proving to be more valuable than any technology the Coalition had ever developed. The planet could send messages instantly across its entire surface through its root systems and chemical signals. The humans had learned to tap into this network, giving them communication capabilities that surpassed anything in the Coalition fleet. Rodriguez had taken on the job of what she called alien diplomacy. She had made contact with dozens of different species on the planet, from tiny creatures that lived in the soil to massive flying beasts that soared through the upper atmosphere. None of them were hostile once they understood that the humans were there to help. "The planet has been lonely," Rodriguez reported to the Coalition fleet. "It's been trying to communicate with visitors for centuries, but nobody ever tried to listen. The previous teams just came with guns and machines, trying to take what they wanted. We came with open hands and open minds." The Coalition scientists who reviewed the human reports found themselves facing ideas that challenged everything they thought they knew about planetary exploration. The humans had not conquered the planet through superior technology or military force. They had simply been kind to it. Dr. Chang had made another breakthrough that amazed even her human colleagues. She had discovered that the planet's biological systems could be programmed like a computer, but instead of using electronic code, they used chemical formulas. By mixing the right compounds in the right sequence, she could make the planet grow. Specific types of plants, redirect water flow, or even change the local weather patterns. "It's like the planet is a giant living machine," Chang explained to the Coalition scientists during a video conference. "And we've learned how to operate it, not by forcing it to do what we want, but by asking it nicely and offering to help with its problems." The Coalition military commanders were baffled by the human approach. Their doctrine was based on the principle of using superior technology to overcome obstacles. The humans seemed to be using inferior technology but getting better results by working with the obstacles instead of against them. Harris had established what he called environmental partnership zones around each human outpost. These were areas where human technology and planetary biology worked together to create something new. Solar panels grew on living trees that adjusted their position to follow the sun. Water purification systems used modified plant roots to filter toxins. Even the buildings were alive, grown from specially designed coral-like organisms that could repair themselves when damaged. "We're not just surviving here," Harris reported to Admiral Vexstar during one of their weekly communications. "We're thriving. The planet is helping us succeed because we're helping it succeed. It's a partnership, not a conquest." West had been busy developing what he called biomechanical engineering. Instead of building machines that fought against the planet's natural processes, he designed devices that worked with them. His generators used the planet's magnetic fields for power. His tools were made from materials that the planet grew specifically for human use. His vehicles moved by convincing the local organisms to carry them rather than forcing their way through the environment. "Everything here is alive," West explained to the Coalition engineers who were studying his designs. "Instead of fighting that, we use it. The planet wants to be healthy and balanced. When we help it achieve that balance, it gives us everything we need." The human outposts had become something unprecedented in Coalition history. permanent settlements on a Class15 Deathworld. But more than that, they had become models for a new way of exploring and colonizing hostile planets. Morrison's latest report to the Coalition High Command included a proposal that shocked everyone who read it. The humans wanted to establish a permanent research colony on the planet. They claimed they could have a fully operational scientific and agricultural facility within 1 year. "We've proven that cooperation works better than conquest," Morrison wrote in his summary. "This planet has resources that could benefit the entire coalition, but only if we approach it as partners rather than invaders. We request permission to establish a permanent human presence here, not as conquerors, but as neighbors." The coalition fleet watched in amazement as the impossible became routine. The humans had not just survived on the most dangerous planet in their database, they had made it their home. 6 months had passed since the humans first landed on the deadly planet. Admiral Vexstar stood in the Coalition Command Center, holding a report that made him question everything he thought he knew about war, exploration, and life itself. The humans had done something that had never happened before in Coalition history. "They want to stay," he said to his senior staff, his voice filled with disbelief. "The humans are asking permission to build a permanent colony on a Class15 Deathworld." The room fell silent. In over 1,000 years of Coalition exploration, no species had ever volunteered to live permanently on such a dangerous planet. Most species could barely survive a few days on worlds rated Class 10 or higher. Captain Jake Morrison's final report lay open on the Admiral's desk. Instead of a military assessment, it read like a proposal for the most ambitious colonization project in galactic history. The human team had not only survived the planet that had killed dozens of Coalition expeditions, but they had turned it into their new home. "The planet's resources are beyond anything we imagined," Morrison had written. "With proper care and cooperation with the native ecosystem, this world could feed billions of people across the galaxy. We have already begun converting large areas into productive farmland using methods that actually improve the planet's health." Dr. Lisa Chang had been promoted to chief xenobiologist for the entire coalition. Her discoveries about planetary consciousness had opened new fields of science that other species were still trying to understand. Her work on the deadly planet had led to breakthroughs that were changing how the coalition approached exploration of hostile worlds. "We were wrong about everything," Chang had concluded in her final scientific report. "What we call deathworlds are actually complex living systems that protect themselves from what they see as threats. The key is not to conquer them, but to prove that you are not a threat. Once you do that, these worlds become the most generous hosts in the galaxy." The Coalition's military doctrine, built on thousands of years of experience with dozens of different species, had been made obsolete by a group of humans who refused to follow the rules. They had succeeded by ignoring everything the Coalition had learned about hostile planet exploration. Sergeant Ben Harris had been offered the position of Director of Environmental Integration for the Coalition's Exploration Division. His techniques for working with dangerous environments were being studied and copied by military units across the galaxy. Worlds that had been considered impossible to explore were now being successfully colonized using his methods. "The secret is simple," Harris had explained to a gathering of Coalition military leaders. "Do not try to fight the environment. Try to become part of it. Every ecosystem wants to be healthy and balanced. If you can help it achieve that balance, it will take care of you in return." The Coalition officers who listened to Harris found his ideas difficult to accept. Their training taught them to use superior technology to overcome obstacles. Harris was suggesting they should ask the obstacles for help instead. Corporal Danny West had revolutionized Coalition engineering by proving that the best solutions were often the simplest ones. His designs using local materials and natural energy sources were being implemented across the Coalition's infrastructure projects. Equipment that had cost millions of credits to build was being replaced by systems that the planets themselves helped create. Human engineering is based on working with natural systems instead of replacing them, the Coalition's chief engineer had noted in his analysis. This approach produces results that are more efficient, more durable, and more adaptable than our traditional methods. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez had been appointed as the Coalition's first ambassador to planetary consciousness. This was a job that had not existed until the humans proved it was necessary. Her methods for communicating with non-technological intelligence were being studied and implemented across the Coalition. The humans have forced us to expand our definition of diplomacy, the Coalition's chief diplomatic officer had admitted. We now recognize that planetary ecosystems can be negotiated with as political entities. This changes everything about how we approach exploration. The planet that had killed so many Coalition explorers had become humanity's most successful colony. The human settlement was producing food, raw materials, and scientific discoveries that benefited the entire galactic community. Trade ships were arriving daily to exchange goods with the human colonists. The deadly storms that had destroyed Coalition equipment were now being used to generate power for the human cities. The corrosive atmosphere that had melted advanced. Materials was being processed into valuable industrial chemicals. The massive predators that had terrorized previous expeditions were now working alongside human security forces to protect the colony from genuine threats. Morrison walked through the main settlement, amazed by what his team had accomplished. The buildings were alive, grown from coral-like organisms that repaired themselves when damaged. The streets were lined with trees that cleaned the air and provided light at night. The entire city was a partnership between human technology and planetary biology. Nothing happened like we hoped, Admiral Vextar had written in his final report to the Coalition Council. We expected the humans to fail quickly, buying us time to develop new strategies for dealing with Class15 Deathworlds. Instead, they succeeded beyond our wildest dreams using approaches that we never considered. The betting pools among the Coalition crew had given the humans 6 hours before complete mission failure. Instead, they had created something unprecedented, a partnership between species and planet that redefined what it meant to explore the galaxy. Chang stood in her laboratory, surrounded by plants and creatures that had once been considered deadly enemies. They now worked together to solve problems that had puzzled Coalition scientists for generations. The planetary communication network she had discovered was being used to coordinate research projects across multiple star systems. The planet was never our enemy, Chang explained to a group of visiting Coalition scientists. It was a potential friend that we never bothered to understand. Once we learned to communicate with it, everything changed. Harris had established environmental partnership zones around dozens of human settlements. These areas demonstrated how human technology and planetary biology could work together to create something better than either could achieve alone. The techniques he had developed were being used to heal damaged ecosystems on worlds across the galaxy. We do not conquer planets, Harris had said during a speech to the Coalition Academy. We befriend them. A conquered planet will always fight back. A friend planet will help you succeed. West's biomechanical engineering had made him famous throughout the Coalition. His designs were being used to build cities that lived and breathed, machines that grew instead of being manufactured, and transportation systems that moved by convincing the local environment to carry them. Everything in the universe is alive in some way, West had explained to the Coalition's top engineers. Once you accept that, you can work with anything. The universe wants to help you succeed. You just have to know how to ask. Rodriguez had established diplomatic relations with hundreds of different species on the planet. Her success had led to the creation of a new branch of Coalition diplomacy focused on communicating with planetary consciousness. Her methods were being used to resolve conflicts between species and their environments on worlds across the galaxy. Every planet has its own personality, Rodriguez had written in her guide to planetary diplomacy. Some are shy, some are aggressive, some are curious, and some are protective. The key is to figure out what each planet needs and to offer your help in providing it. The human colony had become a model for future colonization efforts. Instead of the traditional approach of terraforming hostile worlds to make them suitable for Coalition species, The new approach was to help species adapt to work with the worlds they wanted to inhabit. Years later, when young coalition officers asked how the humans had achieved the impossible, their instructors would always give the same answer. They did not try to conquer the planet. They asked if they could be neighbors. The deployment had gone nothing like the coalition had hoped. It had gone infinitely better. The humans had not just survived the ultimate test of hostile planet exploration. They had transformed it into the ultimate example of what cooperation could achieve. The deadly planet had become humanity's greatest success story, and the galaxy would never be the same.